Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Jai Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe. Shri Radha Govinda ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the Semo devotees. Hare Krishna. Okay, we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, chapter 13, the appearance of Lord Varaha. Verse 2nd, and text 2nd and 3. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Okay, so text 2. Viduro Vacha. Okay, let's try to repeat it together. It's simple. Savai Svayam Bhuvat Samrat. Okay, one more time. Savai Svayam Bhuva Samrat. Priya Putra Svayam Bhuva. Pratilabhya Priyam Patnim. Kim Chakara Tato Mune. Tato Mune. Vidura Uvacha. Vidura said, Saha, he, Vai, easily, Svayambhuvaha, Svayambhuva Manu, Samrat, the king of all kings, Priyaha, dear, Putraha, son, Svayambhuvaha, of Brahma, Pratilabhya, after obtaining, Priyam, most loving, okay, Patnim, wife, Kim, what, Chakara, Dit, Tataha, thereafter. Mune, oh great sage. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charan Arvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vidura said, oh great sage, what did Swayambhuva, the dear son of Brahma, do after obtaining his very loving wife? There is no purport, so we'll read the next verse. 3. Charitam tasya rajarsher adi rajasya sattama bruhime shradadhanaya vishvaksena shrayo hyasao. O best of the virtuous, the original king of kings, Manu, was a great devotee of the personality of Godhead Hari, and thus it is worth hearing of his sublime character and activities. Please describe them. I am very eager to hear. Purport. Srimad Bhagavatam is full of the transcendental topics of the personality of Godhead and his pure devotees. In the absolute world, there is no difference in quality between the Supreme Lord and his pure devotee. Therefore, hearing the topics of the Lord and hearing of the character and activities of the pure devotee have the same result, namely, the development of devotional service. Okay. Vidura said, O great sage, what did Swayambhuva, the dear son of Brahma, do after obtaining his very loving wife? O best of the virtues, the original king of kings, Manu, was a great devotee of the personality of Godhead Hari, and thus it is worth hearing of his sublime character and activities. Please describe them. I am very eager to hear. Hare Krishna. So okay. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate grimyat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinatharinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. When I read this verse number 2, so what did Swayambhuva do after obtaining his very dear loving wife? So I was thinking, well, for a materialist, what do you do after obtaining your most dear object of sense enjoyment? You enjoy the senses, but we'll read through later this chapter. It's not the case with Swayambhuva Manu. He did devotional service. He performed tapasya. And then in this third verse, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that Srimad Bhagavatam is full of descriptions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and of the devotees of the Lord. And the great devotees of the Lord, they give example how do we perform devotional service. So there are two types of Vedic literatures. One is Shruti, which means the direct words of Krishna, the law. These are the laws in the universe, and they never change, down to the letter. Like, for example, there is always a Shruti called Shri Ishavasya Upanishad, and never changes. In this universe, in the next universe, in the previous universe, it is exactly the same. Ishavasya midagga saravayat kincha jagatyan jagata tena tyaktena bunjita magridah kasya svidhanam. Never changes. And we also have what is called smriti. Smriti means the tradition, how the great personalities, the great devotees, the great sages, how they understood the law and how they applied it in their life and what result they attained. And this is what Srila Prabhupada means by saying the example of the great devotees. So we need this example because, first of all, knowledge is meant to be applied in life. It is not just theoretical. It is also theoretical, jnanam, but also, most importantly, jnana should become vijnana, means realized knowledge or practical knowledge or wisdom, and this happens by applying the knowledge in life. Therefore, chit, the definition of chit potency is knowledge, but knowledge means action. In the Sanskrit grammar, the center of the grammar is the verb. It means action. And therefore, also in our practice, what is the center? It's abhideya, the devotion service, practical activity. Therefore, we have to learn the definition of Uttama Bhakti, Anyabhilashta Shunyam Gyana Karmadi Navritam, Anukulena Krishna Anushilvam Bhakti Uttama, and we have to act accordingly. So we have to apply the knowledge, and we have to attain the result, and which is pure love of Krishna. And the great devotees, they, with their example, they show us how to apply the knowledge and how to be devotees. And also Mahaprabhu, also when he comes, he's also giving the example, because in the Nectar of Devotion it is described that sometimes some people attain bhava and prema immediately. There are examples like this. The gopis, the wives of the brahmanas from 10th canto, when the cowherd boys, they went to ask for some food because Krishna and Balaram were hungry, and the brahmanas ignored them. But their wives, they immediately surrendered to the Lord. And also Maharaja Katvanga, there are examples like this. But most of us, it will take time. And the great devotees, by their example, they show what are the common obstacles that we will encounter in our progressive march toward the supreme goal, and how to deal with these obstacles. What will Maya offer to us, and what should be our reaction? Haridas Thakur showed by example. When Maya Devi personally came, he showed the example, and so many other devotees. Krishna uses the great devotees. Sometimes he deliberately bewilders them in order to give us example. For example, Arjuna, he was seen Maya by the arrangement of Krishna. For example, Parikshit Maharaj also, he offended this Shamika Muni, this great rishi. Apparently he was in Maya, he was bewildered. But we know this is Yoga Maya. This was done by the Lord for our sake. And so many other great personalities, like some of them we like to quote sometimes in lectures. Give example, like this great sage, Saubhari Muni. He was the great sage meditating under the water, and then he saw two fishes having sex, and he became, strangely, he became very, very excited about it, and then he got married. He got 50 wives, and then he repented, and he said, well, everybody should learn by my example. And who is everybody? That's us. Also, Maharaja Bharata, he gave up a prosperous kingdom. He was the emperor, his beautiful wife, obedient children, and his friends. And when he was in the prime of his youth, how do you do that? That's impossible. It's practically impossible. But he did it, and it was not a hard thing for him to do, because he was very much attracted by the devotional service of Krishna. And then what happened, he ended up, he was on the level of bhava, and he became attached to an animal. So can you imagine, you gave up your own wife and children and friends and kingdom, and the kingdom was prosperous, right? We don't hear that he had some problems. And then you get attached to an animal, and he became dear in his next life. And then he again repented, and what did he say? Well, everybody should learn by my example. Yes. Beautiful. I mean, yes, the devotees, well, Dr. Henry, he says, so it's not so bad that he became dear, because he got to hear all the lectures from the advanced devotees. It's interesting, when he became dear, he left home again. So you see some pattern here. as a human or as a deer, and then as a human again, they all leave home somehow. Yeah, but if you read his reaction, he was not pleased that he became a deer. And of course, the devotee, we can always take advantage even if, of the bad bargain, as Srila Prabhupada says. But you can hear the lectures of the great devotees as human also, right? You don't have to become a animal. So there is no need. Chitraketu Maharaj also, he saw the Lord, he got darshan with the Lord, and then there was some apparent mistake. He committed offense against Shiva, well, not really against Shiva, against Durga Devi, and then he was cursed to take birth as a demon. So, in the case of Bharata Maharaj, it's very clearly described how Maya works. Of course, Maya is what's happening there? Of course, Maya, we can never figure it out because Maya is just 1/4 of the creation, and we are 1/10,000 of the tip of a hair. So we'll never figure it out, and we'll be always subjected to Maya's grip until we surrender to the Lord. But this is the goal in Krishna's purpose in describing this in detail, these pastimes with his great devotees, how they become bewildered by Maya. So in the case of Bharata Maharaj, how a great devotee on the stage of Baba, how he falls down, how such a personality can fall down? By Maya usually well, I don't know usually, but in these two cases that I'm going to quote, Maya exploits the good qualities of the devotee, and he's soft-hearted and he's compassionate. In the case of the Arjuna, this was the case, and in the case of Bharata Maharaj. Also, the devotees are compassionate. Bharata Maharaj was very compassionate when he saw this small animal bereft of the protection of his mother at the great danger of being eaten by so many predators in the forest. So he took compassion and he decided to protect him, protect it. And so this is how it happens, by compassion, by misplaced compassion, misapplied compassion. And then Bharata Maharaj, even there is a description how he justified, because he became slackened in his sadhana. His devotional service was getting slackened, and how he justified this. He was already in Maya, he was in illusion already, because he was already attached to the deer, but how he justified it. That's also very interesting to analyze, because this shows how when we are in Maya, when we are in illusion, we think we are not. I'm not in illusion. I'm actually okay. All the while we are falling down from our position. So how did he justify his falling down and his slackening in his sadhana? By saying that, by thinking that, well, one should not be selfish. Okay, I am concerned only about my self-realization, my sadhana, my sadhana. I put myself in the center, right? Sounds very noble, and because of this, I don't want to protect this innocent animal, which have no other protector besides me. Certainly, I should not do that. I should protect the deer, even at the cost of my own sadhana. So this is how he justified his material attraction to this deer, and how Arjuna also justified his material attraction, his material affection for his family members. So all these pastimes are there for us to analyze and to know, to try to avoid these pitfalls, the traps of Maya. Of course, this is only possible by Mam eva ya prapadente, Maya metam tarantite, by surrendering to Krishna. On our own, we cannot do that. So the great devotees, the great personalities, they teach us by their example how to avoid Maya, and also they teach us that it is possible to attain Krishna. That's another aspect of their example. Like again with Chitraketu Maharaj, after he was cursed by Maya Devi, what was his reaction? Imagine you attain something that is very precious, very valuable, and then you're cursed that you lose this. Like he was cursed that he'll become demon. Usually, even neophyte devotees, we're very attached to our position, our prestige, our property. So the moment when we are separated from those, it is the moment of truth. This is when one reveals, when it is revealed to himself and to the rest of the world. Well, Krishna knows, of course, already. What is the actual position of our actual position in devotional service? How much are we advanced? So what did Chitraketu Maharaj do when he was cursed? He apologized. Bhagavatam explains that he had the power to curse back in answer. He had this potency, but he decided to accept humbly his position, and he apologized, he begged for forgiveness, and then he said something very interesting. He said, "My dear mother, I accept the curse. After all, in this material world, what is a curse or what is a blessing? Both the same. No difference, actually. Just like in Chaitanya Charitamrita it is described, it is said that Manu Dharma. There is no good in this material world. It's good and bad. These are just mental concoctions. So we hear this, but it's difficult to actually understand it and to apply it in practical life. It's even more difficult. And when we see the example, because Bhagavatam, it is not just a book. Bhagavatam actually, when we read it carefully with the proper attitude, we actually are supposed to enter into these pastimes. We actually supposed to be there. And we could be. This is the association with the great devotees. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada says in first canto, and now Narada Muni made his, what was that? Made his appearance on the pages of Bhagavatam. Merciful appearance on the pages of Bhagavatam. So then we see the example of Chitraketu Maharaj, how he was actually on this platform. He had the realization, yes, that there is no good and bad in the material world. For him, it was not just theoretical knowledge. It was not just something that you read in Bhagavatam while you prepare for lecture and then you speak out in order to impress the audience. No, this is a part of his property. It's his property, this realization. That's how he lives his life. And so many other cases. Therefore, it is so important to see, to understand, to experience the example of these great devotees when we read Bhagavatam, when we hear about them. There is this whole chapter in 10th canto of Bhagavatam called Description of the Rainy Season and the Autumn in Vrindavan. So there are many analogies there given in Bhagavatam which describe the situation of the self-realized devotee. So we'll read a few of them. With the arrival of the autumn, the ocean and the lakes become silent. Their waters still, just like a sage who has desisted from all material activities and given up his recitation of Vedic mantras. Purport. One recites ordinary Vedic mantras for material promotion, mystic power, and impersonal salvation. Okay, 3 options: material promotion, mystic power, and salvation, impersonal salvation. But when a sage is completely free of personal desire, he vibrates the transcendental glories of the Supreme Lord exclusively. So then he will only chant Hare Krishna and Bhagavatam. He will not anymore chant Vedic mantras with material goals. Yada te moha kaliram buddhir vyatitarishyati tada gantasi nirvedam shrattavyasya shrutasya cha. When your mind has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and to all that is to be heard. This applies to what is being heard is the Vedic mantras, which aim at heavenly pleasures and all that you will hear in future. So this is realization. So when we see in the autumn in Mayapur how the lakes become silent, we have lakes in Mayapur, yeah, we have pukurs and ocean we can see in Puri. Their water still, then we can remember this is just like the great sage who has desisted from all material activities. In the same way that the practitioners of yoga bring their senses under strict control to check their consciousness from flowing out through the agitated senses. Okay, you remember this verse from Gita? Kurmon ganiva sarvashaka. Just like the tortoise brings inside its limbs. In the same way, the yogi, he engages his senses only for the self-realization, for devotional service, and when there is no opportunity, he withdraws. Okay, so in the same way, under strict control to check their consciousness from flowing out through the agitated senses, the farmers erected strong mud banks to keep the water within their rice fields from draining out. So this we see a lot in Mayapur. So when we see that, then we are invited to remember the yogis who have attained perfection. Because otherwise the consciousness will flow through the agitated senses. Very interesting. So the attention, where we put our attention or our consciousness, this actually defines the reality in which we are living, our current reality and our future reality. It depends on where we deploy our consciousness, where our attention is. Like for example, now in this temple room, there are many living entities, and most of them they don't deploy their consciousness by listening Bhagavatam because they don't understand Bhagavatam. They cannot understand. They are not qualified, and this defines their reality. But if we listen Bhagavatam, this also defines our reality. We're in the spiritual reality, and this will determine our future reality, which will be also spiritual. So it's very important. And then the autumn moon relieved all creatures of the suffering caused by the sun's rays, just as wisdom relieves a person of the misery caused by his identifying with his material body, and as Lord Mukunda relieves Vrindavana's ladies of the distress caused by their separation from him. So this is what knowledge is supposed to bring. It's supposed to bring relief from suffering, which is caused by misidentification with the material body. It's not just meant to impress others, to tickle our false ego. It's supposed to be applied in practice, practical life, and it's supposed to get some result. Free of clouds and filled with clearly visible stars, the autumn sky shone brilliantly, just like the spiritual consciousness of one who has directly experienced the purport of the Vedic scriptures. So this is Tattvadarshi, a person who has seen the truth. So this is the autumn sky, etc., etc. What else? Except for the gopis, whose hearts had been stolen by Krishna, the people could forget their suffering by embracing the wind coming from the flower-filled forest. This wind was neither hot nor cold. So this chapter 13 of third canto, the appearance of Lord Varaha, describes the appearance of Lord Varaha. Before that, however, we'll read a little bit. Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport to verse 4. Okay. Person who hear, okay, this is from the verse. Persons who hear from a spiritual master with great labor and for a long time must hear from the mouths of pure devotees about the character and activities of pure devotees. Again, to the topic of hearing about the pure devotees. Pure devotees always think within their hearts of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, who awards his devotees liberation. Srila Prabhupada confirms this statement in his purport to verse 4. Transcendental students are those who undergo great penance in being trained by hearing the Vedas from a bona fide spiritual master. Not only must they hear about the activities of the Lord, but they must also hear about the transcendental qualities of the devotees who are constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. A pure devotee of the Lord cannot be separated from the lotus feet of the Lord for even a moment. Undoubtedly, the Lord is always within the hearts of all living creatures, but they hardly know about it because they are deluded by the illusory material energy. The devotees, however, realize the presence of the Lord, and therefore they can always see the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. Such pure devotees of the Lord are as glorious as the Lord. They are, in fact, recommended by the Lord as more worshipable than He Himself. Worship of the devotee is more potent than the worship of the Lord. It is therefore the duty of the transcendental students to hear of pure devotees, as explained by similar devotees, the Lord, because one cannot explain about the Lord or his devotee unless one happens to be a pure devotee himself. Therefore, in Bhagavatam, in second chapter of first canto, it is stated, Shushrusho Shradadhanasya Vasudevekata Ruchi Syanmahat Sevaya Vipra Punyatirtha Nishevanat. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. So then, Maitreya continues. After his appearance, Manu, the father of mankind, along with his wife, thus addressed the reservoir of Vedic wisdom, Brahma, with obeisances and folded hands. You are the father of all living entities and the source of their subsistence, because they are all born of you. Please order us how we may be able to render service unto you. O worshipful one, please give us your direction for the execution of duty within our working capacity, so that we can follow it for fame in this life and progress in the next. Lord Brahma said, My dear son, O Lord of the world, I am very pleased with you, and I desire all blessings for both you and your wife. You have, without reservation, surrendered yourself into me with your heart for my instructions. So, without reservation, this is how we are supposed to surrender to our authorities. Therefore, we're supposed to go and ask for service. So, please, what is the service that you want me to do? Not what I want to do. Of course, at one point in our devotional life, we are supposed to become mature enough so that we don't have to always wait to be told. We should be intelligent enough to figure out on our own. This is the first-class disciple. He knows what to do before even the guru speaks. So then Srila Prabhupada writes, the relationship between the father and the son is always sublime. The father is naturally disposed with good will towards the son, and his soul is ready to help the son in his progress in life. But in spite of the father's good will, the son is sometimes misguided because of his misuse of personal independence. Every living entity, however small or big he may be, has the choice of independence. If the son is unreservedly willing to be guided by the father is 10 times more eager to instruct and guide him by all means. So we should be unreservedly surrendered. So when we approach our authorities and ask for service, we shouldn't think, I hope he doesn't give me this service. I hope he doesn't say this. I hope he doesn't send me over there. So this is, we keep some reservation. So then we won't be 10 times more, our authority won't be 10 times more eager to instruct us and guide us. By all means, he will also keep a little bit reserved. Yeyatamam prapadyante, tam sataiva bhajamyaham. And then we will not get the full blessings. The father and son relationship as exhibited here in the dealings of Brahma and Manu is excellent. Both the father and the son are well qualified, and their example should be followed by all humankind. Manu, the son, unreservedly asked the father Brahma to instruct him, and the father, who was full of Vedic wisdom, was very glad to instruct. The example of the father of mankind may be rigidly followed by mankind, and that will advance the cause of the relationship of fathers and sons. So this is, sometimes people say Bhagavatam is not practical. This is very practical, how the relationship between the father and son should work out properly. So this is a very practical example. So there is the knowledge, the theoretical knowledge, and then the application of this knowledge in the case of the greatest personalities of the universe, Manu and Brahma. What more you require? So it's most practical. So then Brahma continues, since you are my very obedient son, I ask you to beget children qualified like yourself in the womb of your wife, rule the world in pursuance of the principles of devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus worship the Lord by performance of yajna. O King, if you give proper protection to the living beings in the material world, that will be the best service for me. So Brahma wants Manu to give protection. This is the duty of the Kshatriyas. Kshatriyas are very enthused, very inspired when they can give proper protection to the pragya, to the citizens. This is called Ishvara Bhava. It gives them inspiration in life. So Brahmana will give his life for knowledge. Kshatriya will give his life for protection. That's his mission in life. And the Vaishyas, they want gain. They want money. And of course, this money, part of them, they are given, big part of them are given in charity for dharma, for devotional service. And Shudra will give his life to express himself, for his art. That's his drive in life. Kshatriyas and Brahmanas are actually very similar. The big gap is between the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas, not between the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. So Kshatriyas and Brahmanas are both, they always, first of all, they are not afraid of death. This is their common characteristic. And they are also, they always put the interest of the people, of the pragya, above their own personal interests. So these are two qualities that are common between Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. They both know Shastra, they're both trained in knowledge. The difference is that the Kshatriyas are willing to apply the knowledge, as they say, on the field. And the Brahmanas are always detached. They prefer not to deal too much with the material energy. And the Kshatriyas don't mind. Okay, what is the law? What's Dharma? Okay, that's Dharma, so now this has to be applied. And I am willing to take the responsibility to apply Dharma in life. Therefore, we know that it is very grievous sin to kill a Brahmana. But even a greater sin is to kill the emperor, the king, because he protects many Brahmanas. Therefore, when Shringi, the unexperienced son of Shumika Rishi, cursed Maharaja Parikshit, when his father woke up from his trance and he understood what has happened, he was mortified. And he told his son, for a small offense, you have given a very severe punishment. My dear son, we are all protected by the king. And this king, Maharaja Parikshit, he is sinless, he is Rajarshi, he is pure devotee of the Lord. And now you have cursed him to die. Who is going to protect now the pragya if the king is not here? So, Srila Prabhupada writes, the whole administrative system is arranged for the purpose of going back home, back to Godhead. Brahma is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Manu is the representative of Brahma. Similarly, all other kings on different planets of the universe are representatives of Manu. The law book for the entire human society is the Manu Samhita, which directs all activities towards the transcendental service of the Lord. Okay? So Manu Samhita is valid in Kali Yuga. Here it is stated. Who made Kali Yuga anyway? Krishna. So the laws of Krishna are applicable in Kali Yuga as well. Sometimes people say, well, it's Kali Yuga, it doesn't apply. That means Krishna's law doesn't apply in Kali Yuga. Who made Kali Yuga then? The Satan, the enemy of God, he made Kali Yuga, right? So this is not according to the Vaishnava philosophy, not Vedanta. Some other people, they have this philosophy that there is the God and there is the enemy of God, and they are almost equal. The law book for the... Okay. Every king, therefore, must know that his responsibility in administration is not merely to exact taxes from the citizens, but to see personally that the citizens under him are being trained in Vishnu worship. So to see personally. Therefore, Dhritarashtra was not qualified to be king because he was blind. And although he can depend on his ministers for some of his duties, some of the duties of the king he has to do personally. Like here Prabhupada says, he has to personally see that the citizens under him are being trained in Vishnu worship, personally. Before, in the courtyards of the kings, there was a big drum, and everybody who was dissatisfied with something in the kingdom had the right to come inside and to sound the drum. So in this case, in this scenario, the king had to personally come out of his palace and to address the issue personally and to solve the problem personally. And the kings were very careful that this should not happen, because in their dynasty of great kings, this drum was never sounded. It was never such a disgrace to the whole dynasty that some citizen, some pragya, was dissatisfied with something in his kingdom. So he was very careful that I'm not the black spot. I'm not going to disgrace my whole dynasty of kings coming from the sun or from the moon. And nowadays, people are so dissatisfied, but nobody cares. They say they care, but actually in reality they don't. Everyone must be educated in Vishnu worship and engaged in the devotional service of Hrishikesha, the owner of the senses. The conditioned souls are meant not to satisfy their material senses, but to satisfy the senses of Hrishikesha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the purpose of the complete administrative system. So that's the purpose, to satisfy Hrishikesh and Hrishikesha Sevadam Bhakti Ruchita. This is the purpose, to satisfy the sense of Krishna. Not to provide more sense enjoyment for the citizens, by which they are anyway not satisfied. Because by definition you can't be satisfied by sense enjoyment, because we are the soul. The soul is never satisfied by material things. One who knows this secret, as disclosed here in the version of Brahma, is the perfect administrative head. One who does not know this is a show bottle administrator. So, show bottle, false, so-called. By training the citizens in the devotional service of the Lord, the head of the state can be free of his responsibility. Otherwise, he will fail in the onerous duty entrusted to him, and thus be punishable by the supreme authority. There is no other alternative in the discharge of administrative duty. If the administration doesn't follow these rules, then they have to share in the sinful reactions of the citizens. And if they follow the rules, then they share in their pious in the pious reaction, in the pious credit. All right, so it's 10 to 9, I think. So what we have said till now, we should be very eager to hear about the glory of the great devotees of the Lord, because by their example they teach us how to avoid Maya, and also they show us practically that it is possible to attain Krishna. When we see how they attain the darshan of the Lord, how they attain pure love of God, we become enthusiastic, because it works. I mean, you see this in front of your eyes. Okay, here in this case, a normal person will react in this way. We know, because we almost always react in this way. But this great devotee, he reacts in the opposite way. That means he has attained realization, and this inspires us to also to advance. And okay, also we spoke about that we should surrender wholeheartedly to our authorities, and this way we'll earn their mercy fully. We spoke about the duties of the kings also. Okay, Hare Krishna. You want to say something? Try with one question.
So, you said that when there's a difficulty, worship, as worshipful,
Even more.
So, in that sense, how do you know if that person is
Ah.
Shouldn't we then just worship everyone? Everyone is practicing bhakti.
Maybe to add something more to this question.
Oh, I thought you were going to answer the question. Now you're adding more questions.
Like in the case of Swami Obama, like first, he is a king. He's a king, so he's kind of in a managerial position. And also, he was a family person. And also, he was Prajapati, who generally mean well. And you are actually just to
Mano, yes.
So, how, again, same question, how to understand who's a pure devotee? Then it looks like according to external things, very difficult because
Yeah.
it looks like that from external perspective he was in a disadvantaged position.
Because he had to manage, he has to manage.
He has to manage, that means he was really engaged closely with material nature. He was that in no sense was not renunciate or great muni, great sage. He was Prajapati even, he had to create progeny. So
Yeah.
I mean this takes thinking, it takes your
It's
energy
entangling.
goes in a certain direction.
Yeah.
But at the same time he's one of the 12 greatest personalities in the universe. So how again how to understand this statement?
Hmm. Well, we can say it takes one to know one. This is what usually is said. You have to be pure devotee in order to understand who is a pure devotee. But and also we are supposed to see the devotees as pure devotees. Prabhupada was asked how many pure devotees are in ISKCON, and he said, what was the answer? How many devotees are? How many members of ISKCON? So in one sense, everybody is a pure devotee, but also, like the question, actually, your question was a little deeper because you mentioned that it doesn't look like he's a pure devotee because he has to deal with so much. Yeah. So the pure devotion is a matter of consciousness. Therefore, we are International Society for Krishna Consciousness. It's a matter of mood, of feelings, of emotions, pure emotions towards Krishna. So it doesn't really matter the external situation, you can say. There are many examples. Krishna gives example with Janaka Maharaj in Bhagavad Gita, and Yudhishthira Maharaj is another example. He was emperor of the world. Many other great kings are pure devotees. So this is not a disqualification if you have to deal with the material energy extensively for being a pure devotee. Of course, in these cases, all great kings, we see also that they took vanaprastha at one point. They didn't use this as an excuse. Oh, I'm pure devotee, and my wife is a pure devotee, so I shouldn't take vanaprastha. No, Yudhishthira Maharaj didn't even consult with his brothers, let alone his wife. He just left the kingdom. That's all. He didn't speak with them. Neither with his mother, nobody. He didn't speak with anybody. And on their own, they followed him, his brothers and Draupadi. But if they would have not followed him, he would not have cared. So one can be pure devotee and dealing extensively with the material energy, but one should not remain in this situation forever. That's the lesson that we learn. So who is a pure devotee? Pure devotional service begins from Nishta onwards. So this is pure devotee. In the category of pure devotees, there are also different gradations. The pure devotees, pure unalloyed devotees, pure unalloyed devotees, etc. But pure devotion begins from devoting your 16, at least 18 hours. If we devote 18 hours, our waking hours, if we are unflinchingly engaged in devotional service, that means we're in the level of Nishta. Okay, so you want to add something?
Yeah, but one can...
We have only 4 minutes and there are not lots of time for more questions. I see many eager beavers for...
Well, one can just make his schedule in such a way that he spends, like 18 hours in the temple, and this makes him a pure devotee?
No, because he has to sincerely worship the Lord in these 18 hours, not just spend his time in the temple. It's not.
Let's say he can spend time in the temple and he can really sincerely worship the Lord because he knows that after this sincere worship, already now the Lord will give him
Oh yeah, well,
the house, the
mhm,
car, the peace,
yeah,
the
right. So then we should quote again the definition of Uttama Bhakti, Anibilashta Shunyam Jnana Karmadhyana Vritam Anukulena Krishna Nushilam Bhakti Uttama. The devotional service should be for Krishna and his pure devotees, should be according to the authorities, it should be devoid of other desires than devotional service, especially desire for karma, for jnana, and others, yoga, sankhya. It should be with favorable attitude towards Krishna. Yeah. And is this, maybe you want to add something, I don't know.
basically again, as you explained very nicely, that external situation is not disqualification for pure devotion. But at the same time, we cannot say that the external situation is qualification.
Right.
Best
Yes.
hours in the temple, I'm qualified to be a pure devotee.
Yeah.
Because I'm worshiping Krishna with so-called intensity or sincerity, that's why I should
Yeah.
be a pure devotee. No, it's a question of the relationship between Krishna gives us actually what is
The intent,
the intent, purity of
the
motivation.
sincerity. Yeah.
Like some devotee, he may come and do his puja in the temple or prayer for 5 minutes. Krishna sees in his heart there is nothing desire for nothing else than just worship. And someone else he can spend the whole,
Yeah.
he can be the brahmachari who never do anything else than direct devotional service in the temple. But actually in his heart actually he lives with the idea that okay, one day I will
Attain the heavenly planets and enjoy.
and
Yeah. Just to balance this, also, what you say is completely correct. Just we also should make distinction between a direct and indirect devotional service, and especially these 5 potent forms of bhakti. So if we are engaged in direct devotional service, even if our mind is not focused on what we are doing, still this is devotional service. It is service, and we will get the benefit. But if we are engaged in indirect activities, for example, we are working, having our job in order to maintain our family, because they are devotees, and so it is indirect devotional service. But if we don't make this connection, then it is just pious material activity. So there is advantage of being engaged in direct devotional service, like chanting, taking prasam, reading Bhagavatam, worshipping the deities, living in a holy place, serving the devotees. So anyway, I just wanted to add this. So Bhakta Henrik, he was very eager to say. Hare Krishna. Yes.
So I'm thinking one question.
He was so eager that he forgot.
No, I don't totally know what knowledge I said. Like I hear from that when we come to the there's no difference between, everyone is the same. Krishna says, when I appear, in this world, there's no difference between
How should we worship the devotees? We should worship them in their relationship with Krishna as Krishna's representatives, as Krishna's the most dear objects of affection. They are very dear to Krishna, and because Krishna feels that he's indebted to his devotees, and therefore, if we if we serve directly Krishna is not so impressed. But because he feels that he's indebted to his devotees, if we serve his devotees, then he feels very much satisfied because he wants to reciprocate with them. And if we are instrument in his reciprocation with his devotees, he's very pleased. So we should serve the devotees in this way, always thinking about their connection with Krishna, that they are the most dear to Krishna. So, that's the proper mode of worshipping them. Sakshat Haritvena, Samastra Shastri. Okay, thank you very much. Something else? People are already working outside heavy job, so we should not indulge anymore. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shil Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari. All glories to the Sema devotees. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.